How you getting on, folks? Look at, I suppose tomorrow in Fairyhouse, we're going away from the real good racing we had this weekend. It's not really, I suppose, great standard racing. There's an awful lot of these handicappers. There is, I suppose, one or two fairly decent looking races, but to be quite honest with you, I wouldn't be going too mad with them. If you are going to be having a bet, make sure they're very, very minimum stakes. Fairyhouse does sort of, I suppose, throw a few spanners in the works, so we're going to be looking at bigger prices here that go in, I suppose, softer to heavy ground, and mainly we're going to be looking at an awful lot of these course and distance winners. Horse that have won over this, I suppose, trip over this track before, especially with the ground in their favour coming in tomorrow into the wintry ground. If you're going to be having a bet, like I said, make sure to go, I suppose, small stakes. Don't be going hell for leather into Fairyhouse on a Tuesday afternoon in absolutely sloppy conditions. First race off, the 12:45, like this, we're going to be, I suppose, taking a little bit of a chance here now with an each way selection. We're going to, I suppose, stick with the Dot Love team, and we're going to go with Brawler here at 12-1. This one here, I suppose, looks to be... It could potentially be well in. Like, obviously, look at... Barry O'Connell's horses are in serious form. We can't go away from that. Really and truly, this favourite does deserve to be favoured here. The one thing that would worry me, though, is the fact that it's yet to go and actually win a race. The fact that it's possibly there to be shot at, and I suppose could be potentially vulnerable to, I suppose, an improving sort at, I suppose, an under handicap mark, really, at the end of the day. In steps Brawler here. Obviously, look at when we're talking about O'Connell in great form, we have to, I suppose, mention That Love as well. A trainer, she is in absolutely serious form. I don't know what percent strike rate she's running off at the minute, but very more often than not, when I'm, I suppose, getting behind her horses, they're nearly always there or thereabouts. Like, all you have to do is look at Bridge Native. The amount of time I mention him on this, I suppose, YouTube channel, and the amount of times he comes in to repay the favour. But this Brawler here definitely looks very interesting. It's, I suppose, it looks capable enough here to go and run a fairly decent race. It's currently running off a price of around 12-1, so he's definitely great each way value. Conor Orr and That Love, when the two of them team up, it always, I suppose, catches the eye more so than anything else. Conor's obviously in great form, Dot's in great form. I personally think 12-1 for Brawler is an absolute massive price. I would be suggesting each way, but I suppose, don't be surprised to see Barry O'Connell absolutely ramp up here in this one. Next race then, we are going to go, I suppose, closer to the top of the market here now. Rock on Barney and Walker's Pint. It definitely looks to be between the two of these. But for me, Walker's Pint looks to be better, I suppose, better off at the weights, and therefore is at a much better price of in around 3-1. When you're looking at, I suppose, overall form and everything else like that, yeah, Rock on Barney has gone on to run some very good races the last two times out, one in Galway, one in Tipperary. Walker's Pint was a very impressive winner in similar enough ground to what it's going to meet tomorrow. It won going away, it won hard held, didn't necessarily win by a massively wide margin. I definitely think this Walker's Pint is, I suppose, well below its original mark. It's well capable of putting it up to Rock on Barney here tomorrow. In terms of, I suppose, an each way aspect here, there's 5, 6, 7 horses in here you could, I suppose, suggest for each way. When it's like that, you're nearly better off to try and look for a horse that's actually going to win the race. In my opinion, Walker's Pint has, I suppose, the advantage of, I suppose, a better weight. It looks, I suppose, under handicapped, and in my personal opinion, it could, I suppose, do a rock on Barney and go, I suppose, for 2 wins on the hop. Really and truly, it's going to be a very good race. It's one of the only races that's going to look like it's going to be a very good, I suppose, battle for the win all the way up to the line. I definitely think it can't be, I suppose, much in the difference between Rock on Barney and Walker's Pint. And the fact that Walker's Pint is at a better price, it's, I suppose, better value in my personal opinion. I think 3-1 is a great value bet. Next race then, the 145, next best of the day. I suppose it's a toss up again between the top two in the market. Look, we're going to go with Jeff Kidder simply because it's already proven itself on the heavier ground. It looks to be the better horse in, I suppose, worse ground compared to the two of these. Really and truly, it's been second last 2 times out, behind some fairly decent rivals. One of those was Scholastic, who was a very good dual purpose horse for Joseph O'Brien. Really and truly, when you're putting it all into perspective, all you have to do is look at the form that Noel Meade is running in. Like at the minute, if you're following his horses, you are making plenty of money at the end of the day. At level stakes, I definitely can't understand how you would be, I suppose, outside of the profit margin zone when you're following Noel Meade for this season. He's absolutely been on fire. Coming up against the Gordon Elliott sort here now, it is going to be a tough race for him, and it is going to be, I suppose, but definitely between the top two. But in my personal opinion, I definitely think this Jeff Kidder looks to be the one to be on tomorrow. I know it's a short enough price, around 6-4, but in my personal opinion, this one here definitely looks to be, I suppose, the more likely winner at the end of the day. Next race then, the 2:15. We're going to go with Gavin Cromwell's horse here now, Gabi Naku at 13-8. This one here looks to be unbelievable value when you put it all into perspective. It's coming up against Fakira for the Gordon Elliott team, who on more occasions than one, he has been very disappointing. What I mean by this, like, he's pulled up a string of seconds. That's not really the disappointing part. It's the fact that they were all the time expecting this horse to win, and with the price it was running at and the prices it has been running at, but kept getting turned over, it just, I suppose, leaves a little bit of doubt in your mind. At, I think it's trading around 6-5 ish. I'm not 100% sure, but Gabi Naku at 13-8 definitely is the better value. Second last time out, I think it was around 18-1, behind a very decent sort. Obviously, look at it's going to improve plenty for that. Gavin Cromwell is slowly but surely starting to get into the swing of things now, and he's starting to get a few winners here and there. I definitely think this is going to be one tomorrow. Jonathan Moore is back out of injury. He's had a winner, I think it was in the last week or 2 weeks since he's been back, for Gavin Cromwell. So that's obviously a massive bonus as well. The fact that Gavin has his, I suppose, number one stable jockey back in action again. I definitely think, look at Gabi Naku looks to be the more, I suppose, potentially the most likely winner. I suppose Fakira does, I suppose, bring more form to the book, but it's just a frustrating horse. It just does not want to win for some reason, and it's definitely vulnerable to a potential improver. In steps Gabi Naku, 13-8. I definitely think that's the horse to be on. Next race, then we are going to go straight into the nap of the day, the 2:45. Willie Mullins only sends one runner here tomorrow. Classy K definitely looks to be the one to certainly beat. Really and truly, it's not the best of races, and when you put it all into perspective, Classic K wouldn't necessarily be one to, I suppose, be putting your nap in every single time it runs. But when you look at the record of, I suppose, race meetings for Willie Mullins, when he sends one runner to the track for one particular race, I don't know what percent rate I don't know what percentage rate the strike rate is, but I'd say it's close to 100%, if not anyway up in the high 90s, really, at the end of the day. Willie Mullins is the king of, I suppose, national hunt racing in Ireland. Um, all you have to do is just look at the mounted champion trainers he's won. But here, Cheltenham, like, it's just unbelievable. He's won absolutely every race you can win at the end of the day. Um, there might be one or two, I suppose, out in the likes of Saudi Arabia or something like that he hasn't won yet. But don't, or I suppose, be expecting him to have that in the back of his mind as well. The man is a machine. I suppose the whole setup is miles before anything else in Ireland, in my personal opinion. Really and truly, the likes of Gordon Elliott, although he is snapping at his heels, he still has a good bit to go to even try and match him. Really and truly, I definitely think Classic K as the only Willie Mullins horse running tomorrow in Fairyhouse, it should be the one to beat. It should be very, very hard beat. I think Paul Townend is going to realistically have a fairly easy ride in it tomorrow. And although it is odds on, it's only a shade odds on. It's I suppose, depending where you are, you probably could get around even money, and if that's the case, you're doubling your money at the end of the day. Next race then, the 315. We're going to go with You Say Nothing for the Gavin Cromwell team, if I'm not mistaken again. Currently trading around 8 to 1 each way. This one here is definitely, I suppose, one that I suppose to keep a close eye on here. It's not really the best of races. There's an awful lot of these in here. I think Crack on Corrie is one of these up near the top of the market, who doesn't really seem to go as well as it would on better ground. Really and truly, in my personal opinion, you're looking at, I suppose, horses that go in this particular ground. You Say Nothing has, I suppose, it's ran to a fairly, I suppose, mediocre stage, and I suppose it's not really one that many people would be tipping it up. But I think it's only had a couple of runs, and it's only just qualified for a handicap mark. I think Keith Donoghue is riding it tomorrow. It's possibly the only race that I suppose I didn't study too much into it, because it just looks to be an absolute dogfight. I think Keith Donoghue is riding for Gavin Cromwell, if I'm not mistaken. Now, I could be wrong, but really and truly, it definitely looks to be one that potentially, the fact that it's just qualified for a handicap mark, it could be, I suppose, definitely under the I suppose, look at it. It could be escaping the handicapper, really, is what I'm trying to say. 8 to 1 could be well worth getting on each way. Next race then, the 345. We're definitely getting another each way here now with this one. Ballymedone at 14 to 1 definitely looks to be the one to be on. Is currently trading around 14 to 1 at a quarter of the odds for 3 places. And for 4 places then you can still get at 12 to 1. But personally speaking, it's the only horse that's won over course and distance. It likes the ground, it likes the track. It's, I suppose, best around softer ground. Coming from the Dermot McLaughlin team, it's definitely one that's going to catch the eye. The fact that Dermot's had a couple of winners over the past couple of weeks, and the fact that he's been in pretty decent form for the whole, I suppose, season since it's restarted up again. But overall, really and truly, when you're putting it all into perspective, this Ballymedone at 14 to 1, it's only £1 higher than its last winning mark. Now, I know it's recently been, I suppose, out of form and out of touch with sorts, but really and truly, it only has £1 to find. And the fact that it's coming in, I suppose, potentially, well, it's definitely going to be soft ground, but it could well turn out to be really, really heavy. And if that's the case, Ballymedone, I would be expecting to see this horse shorten in price massively. Really and truly, it's great value, as well as that 12 to 1 for 4 places. I definitely think that's well worth getting on board. That one definitely looks to be a very, very solid bet. And in my personal opinion, 14 to 1 for 3 places alone is a mad, mad price. Last race of the day then, the 415, we're going to go in another each way shout here now with Cute Cute Cherry at 10-1 for the Gordon Elliott team. Now look at when you're putting it all, I suppose, into consideration. This one does look to be the second string. The favourite, I'm not 100% convinced whether it's any good or not, especially in the ground is going to be meeting tomorrow. It's not really the best, I suppose, breeding for real heavy ground. But I suppose when you're putting it all into perspective, it's not really got anything of any real quality to beat in here. In my personal opinion, it's definitely well worth taking a look at this Cute Cherry. It's a half sister, I think, to the Rasher Counter for Emma Lavelle over in England. If it's even half the quality for Gordon Elliott as it is, say, the half sister for of the Rasher Counter. If it's anywhere close to the Rasher Counter in terms of potential, you have to, I suppose, think that this horse potentially is a great price at 10-1 on his debut. At the end of the day, look at it's got I suppose an awful lot, I suppose, of a ladder to climb on his debut. Is meeting horses that have experience and is meeting horses that potentially will improve with, I suppose, the run as well. But Gordon Elliott has thrown out a couple of second string winners and bumpers. Definitely since the start of the season resumed again, and in my personal opinion, the fact that it's closely related to a high class horse like the Rasher Counter, it's definitely well worth getting on each way. 10-1 could well be worth, I suppose, getting behind and hopefully going on to bigger and better things. In my personal opinion, that's the horse for value in that race, and they're the horses for value in that meeting tomorrow. Look at, like I said, there's an awful lot of, I suppose, ifs and buts in this particular meeting tomorrow. There's an awful lot of ifs and buts with these particular selections tomorrow. Like I said, I wouldn't be going too hard on them. I wouldn't be going too, I suppose, I certainly wouldn't be throwing hard weeks wages on them at the end of the day. Throw a couple of euro, throw a euro each way. That's all I'd suggest doing, and that's all I'd hope anyone else would be doing. But that's my opinion for Fairyhouse tomorrow. If you like the content, please make sure to keep sharing, subscribing, liking, telling your family, friends, anyone that'll basically listen to you at the end of the day. Get the word out there. The Peaky Blogger, that's the place to be for good value tips. And hopefully we'll be able to go for a fourth week in concession of some very, very nice profit, which has been absolutely, it's blown me away. I'm going to leave it there. Best of luck for tomorrow, and thanks very much for listening.